Election day being only a few short days away, I think we're all getting really excited and maybe a little bit anxious. This could very well be one of the most important elections of our generation. So let's get started with my weekly recap. First up, we have the Alberta Liberals, who released their platform promising to put more cash in your pockets while also selling hats and t-shirts for a whopping $100 with the hashtag laying pipe. Now, someone really needs to tell the Liberal PR department what that term actually means. Leader David Kahn has already said that he would eliminate the personal income tax for the majority of Albertans, but he also promises to bring in a PST. Now, the plan actually makes some sense because it could mean more money staying here in Alberta, but the mere mention of a PST is enough to turn so many away from his party. Also promising a 2% corporate tax cut and some serious investments in mental health and education. But much like Rachel Notley, Kahn is trying to get undecided voters over to his side with a little bit of mudslinging. However, it's towards the NDP. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't see the Liberals making any gains next week. And let's be honest, Liberal is essentially a dirty word here in Alberta. Next up is the Alberta Party with promises for agriculture, mandatory vaccination for kids attending public schools, post-secondary education, and the opioid crisis. They would declare a public health state of emergency and increase opiate response funding by 50%. They'd also fund new consumption sites. But remember back when leader Stephen Mandel was the PC health minister and refused federal funding for the opioid crisis? If you ask him about it, he will refuse to answer any questions on that. Now, for those of us living in rural Alberta, the escalation of crime has been a major stressor. What the Alberta Party are suggesting is to work with the RCMP to increase patrols. Now, I have lived in the boonies for the last 7.5 years, and I have yet to see a single patrol car coming down my road. And it's also a very rare sight to see RCMP officers in my neighboring communities. We also have a half an hour response time, so any added funding and extra RCMP presence would be really great. The bulk of rural crime is committed by repeat offenders, so the Alberta Party promises $10 million to lift the prosecutor wage freeze and hire 25 more Crown prosecutors. Moving on to the Freedom Conservative Party, who released their platform as well, the Green Line LRT would lose its funding because, as Derek Fildebrandt put it, Mayor Nenshi cannot be trusted with that amount of money. And I kind of agree with him there. They're promising a decrease in our income tax rate and large business tax rate to 10% and completely eliminating the small business tax. Derek Fildebrandt is for cutting any damn tax called a tax, and to woo voters, even the beer tax would be gone. They found savings by slashing ministry budgets or getting rid of some ministries like the Economic Development and Trade altogether. With all their proposals, they think they can balance the budget by 2023. They would demand that Ottawa reevaluate the unfair equalization and effectively just end it altogether. If Ottawa doesn't comply, they are prepared to hold a referendum and begin the process of separation. Now, you all know that I am not a fan of separation whatsoever, but what really surprised me was when I talked to the FCP candidate for my riding and I asked him, "Are you a fan of separation?" He said no, plain as day. So not all of Derek's candidates are on the same page as him. Throughout the election, we all knew that the NDP were going to fight dirty, but I didn't expect them to go as low or for all the cheap shots as much as they have. The whole basis of their campaign is not where they can improve. It's about smearing Jason Kenney. Truly remind me of a scared dog that lashes out at any movement, and I can honestly say I am completely disgusted with their campaign. This week, they didn't really announce anything other than the possibility of shovels going in the ground for Trans Mountain by the end of May. Now, we've heard Rachel say that this is going to happen soon more times than I can count, but this time she's betting her political career on it. What made me roll my eyes the most was when she said this pipeline has been the fight of her life. But on the other hand, her NDP government have done everything possible to stifle and strangle our energy sector. It's only been in this election year that we've suddenly seen this anti-oil NDP turn into oil and gas advocates to buy votes. We've also seen Rachel and her NDP candidates resort to petty name-calling, and not just scare tactics, but total and utter fear-mongering. You have one candidate making racist remarks to another one cyberbullying, and one saying that Albertans will completely and totally suffer under a UCP government. Well, newsflash, more Albertans have suffered than ever before in the last 4 years under this NDP government. In an effort to sway undecided voters to her side, the lows Rachel has gone to know no bounds, calling the UCP extremists that attack minorities and won't protect some religions. But what irritated me quite a bit was the claim that Conservatives won't support the LGBTQ community, which is a completely false assumption. I'm a conservative and I support the LGBTQ community. Rachel is simply preying on people's fears, plain and simple. Last but certainly not least is Jason Kenney's United Conservatives, who have made their platform very clear from the beginning. Jobs, economy, pipelines. Right out of the gate, they would make Bill 12, the turn off the taps legislation, law and end the flow to BC, essentially sending a very clear message that BC will no longer be allowed to hinder Alberta's prosperity. Jason Kenney has already sent a stern letter to Justin Trudeau stating very clearly that if he wants to enact legislation that hurts our economy, then a referendum will be held on equalization. Now, Rachel can call this approach antagonistic all she likes, but how well did her approach work? Sometimes the best way to deal with a bully like Justin Trudeau is to stand up to him, and it's about time Alberta took a stand. There are multiple things in the UCP platform that focus on getting our province back on track, and they're not all about oil. Now, my favorite is the Carbon Tax Repeal Act, because essentially it has been a backdoor PST that has done nothing except make our lives more expensive. A UCP government would show plain as day that Alberta is once again open for business with tax cut, jobs creation strategies, and removing so much of the red tape the NDP have saddled us with. In the last few days, Elections Alberta have seen record numbers at advanced polling stations. People are ready and desperate for change. And I can't stress enough how important it is for every single Albertan to get out there and vote. Now is not the time to be complacent or to take an orange flush and a blue wave for granted. Go vote.